And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are on Gameface on the Bleed Talent Network. I am your host, Richard the Razor Ewing. I'm with my other host, Mike the Shoe Shumann. Mike, what do we got tonight?
Well, a little bit of everything here tonight. And just talking before we went on the air, all of a sudden you're not as confident about your 49ers coming up this season with all the injuries that are starting to mount up. And we've got another first case of COVID with the 49ers. And so by talking to it, I think what you're saying is you might not bet the house on the Super Bowl this year with the 49ers.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like I've been listening to a lot of local aficionados talk about San Francisco and, the fact that they, were in the Super Bowl last year and nobody picked them to be there, which they managed to get there, which was amazing. But it's like this year I'm looking at just all the injuries, the fact that we're in the middle of COVID-19. You had told me that they picked up another player recently contracted it. So it's like, all these situations are taking place. It makes me think, you know what? I look at Arizona, I look at Seattle, the Cardinals, in my opinion, are probably going to be pretty tough to beat.
Well, that's the season opener, so that will be tough. And but we got it all going on. We're just getting that season started. We're in the NBA playoffs. And did somebody say playoffs? The NBA, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League are all in full swing. And our partners at Bet Online have you covered. I, of course, love betting on the Super Bowl and football, and I can't wait for it to get started. So take full advantage of sports being back. Get in on the action with hundreds of odds, futures, and props for you to bet on. There's always the online casino as well. It never closes. All right, so head to betonline.ag today and sign up to receive your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's betonline.ag and sign up today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And I, for one, can't wait to get it started. So, but let's start with what we talked about. Fred Warner, their future all-world linebacker, tested positive for COVID-19. So he's gone on the COVID reserve list, and he's got 10 days to kind of get healthy. We don't know if it's symptomatic, asymptomatic, and he's got to pass 3 tests in a row before he can play in 14 days against the Cardinals. So this is what could happen to every NFL team this year, where key players get, kind of knocked down. And George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Dre Greenlaw, all out of practice. Trent Williams, he was in sweats. Javon Kinlaw, slot quarterback Juan Williams, they came back today. But like you said earlier, 16 people on their injured list. And we're going to have a lot more pulled hamstrings, pulled calf muscles, soft tissue injuries going into the NFL without preseason games, without OTAs, without minicamp. So you're going to see a lot of little minor injuries that are, for instance, George Kittle's already got a hamstring, and that could be, a nagging injury throughout the entire year if you don't let it heal properly. So Fred Warner, their first kind of case, and I'm a little concerned. It's kind of in a bubble atmosphere in a training camp. They don't know if he got it outside of training camp. Did he get it once he got here? Is somebody asymptomatic and gave it to him? So that's the next step, is to find out where he picked it up. So not a good sign, no. And yeah, with so many people in camp, you only have one guy, but he's a key guy on the defense. So a little concern there. And just hearing that for the first time, we got a positive test on COVID-19.
So, the interesting thing about all of this is that you look at the NBA bubble, and you look at what other leagues, and I'm sure that the other leagues saw what the NBA was doing and decided to go ahead and copy it. But we even know, even in the NBA bubble, they had a couple of guys that did test positive.
Right.
So what does this mean? This means that the bubble itself is not a cure-all to the season. It's something that they have to enforce and use so that they can have a season, which means, there's going to be some people that are probably still going to test positive. Now, we also know the NFL for versus the NBA, the odds of you getting COVID-19 are much higher based on what the NFL does versus what the NBA does. And so we don't know as this season goes on how this is going to play out. And mind you, it's not just San Francisco that's probably worried about this. I'm sure the other teams. I'm sure Seattle. I'm sure Arizona. I'm sure
Everything.
Yeah. I'm sure they're all trying to watch their steps and try to figure out what's the best possible way to go about this without catching this thing. So it's almost as if like the whole thing with COVID-19 in the NFL is almost like a test dummy. Like everybody's just waiting to see, okay, look, how are we going to go about doing this? What is going to happen? And then all of a sudden, Fred Warner comes up positive. Now it's like, oh, wow, wait a minute. Now what do we do?
Well, baseball is really the test dummy for these team sports, I think, that's not in the bubble. They're traveling. And one of the A's contacted COVID-19. They can't give the information out, but for the players who didn't play, it looks like Marcus Semien might have picked up. And, and I don't want to, say who or what, but so the A's series with Seattle was postponed through Wednesday. So they're staying down in Houston. They have no more positive tests on the A's, which is good news. But now they're losing 3 more games. And we were talking also before the show, you're going to end up the baseball season. And, some teams are going to have played the full 60. Some are going to have played, 52. It's just not going to sync up. And so this is the issue you're going to have in the NFL and college football, so it's a serious situation. In college football, for instance, University of Alabama, 481 students tested positive after the 500 students tested positive. So they have over 1,000 students on campus that have tested positive for COVID-19. So the university president had all the local bars shut down, no more parties at the frat houses.
Right.
And, they're going to power through the SEC. But, I mean, right there, in 2 weeks of school, 3 weeks of school, you got over 1,000 kids who picked up COVID-19.
I'm just trying to understand what these NFL coaches are thinking. It's like, come on, are you serious? It's like, look, I understand that money revenue is the issue. I get that. But look, you didn't really think that COVID was just going to sit in the corner and let you just go about your business and, hey, you don't have to worry about nothing. Hey, we said a couple of weeks ago, COVID is flexing its muscles. It's doing push-ups. COVID is just like, hey, look, you know what? You bring the next warm body here, and guess what? I'm gonna make sure that they get that they catch my virus. That's it.
Right.
And so, for Alabama to basically be put in that situation, which I'm very sorry, because of all those people that tested positive, we don't know which one of those are going to be able to come out, unscathed, where they're going to be able to beat this thing.
But this is students, so we're not sure if it includes actual athletes. So because they can't give that information out. But what you're saying is, yes, it's true. It's just not going to sit in a corner. And now all of a sudden, Ohio State out of the Big Ten is thinking about starting on Thanksgiving because they're seeing the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12 all playing. And now they're like, well, wait a minute, because Iowa, Ohio State, and I can't think of the other team in the Big Ten wanted to play. And so now they're thinking about starting in Thanksgiving. I talked to a coach who coaches at Grambling, who I played with. He goes, they're going to start in the spring, but he goes, shoot, there's no way. We can't play 12 games in the spring and 12 in the fall. We can't play close to 25 games in 5 months with these kids. So that's gonna go by the wayside too. So a lot to be determined. As we talked about, the bubble has worked overall, and they finally got to see their family and children. And there's some great moments on Twitter with their children running to their dad they haven't seen in 6 weeks. But a lot of things being tested here, and it's going to be interesting to see if, I think pro and college football will kick off. Mm-hmm. How far they make it will be determined. So 12 and 16 games is a long way. So, but while we're talking football, Leonard Fournette, running back out of LSU, and the Jaguars got cut. Not traded.
I'm scratching my head on that one.
But NFL teams know that 2 weeks before the season, if you're going to look to trade a guy, every team, all 31 teams are going to go, hell, we'll just wait 2 more weeks and they'll cut it. And we'll just pick him up on waivers, and we don't have to pay the $4 million contract. We can just go ahead and sign him to something else. So I think he'll end up somewhere else. And we talked about it. Jacksonville, more first rounders have left Jacksonville than any team in the NFL. And Jordan Reed, the tight end here with the 49ers, who's really come on here late in camp. He played for Washington and Minnesota, played with Shanahan in Washington and his dad. And he came out the other day and said the 49ers organization is the best organization I've ever played for. They're all in this together. They're all teammates. You don't have guys, trying to, like George Kittle, he didn't go out of his way to hold out or do anything of that nature. So that had to be a nice pump in the arm for the 49ers to hear that, yes, what they are doing is on the right path. So it was pretty interesting to see that, because you don't hear players talk about other teams in a negative light that often because they want to keep playing. You don't want to burn a bridge. So before that was a shock.
Well, I'll tell you something. The guy had 79 catches as a running back. And so I'm just trying to understand, how is it that you have a running back that makes that many catches? And you said yourself, the guy ran for over 1,100 yards. So if you're putting up that type of production, there's got to be something going on in that locker room for him to get cut. We're not talking about a running back that got injured, sat out a year, a running back that for whatever reason tried to hold out with contracts or whatever. This guy has been putting up some serious numbers. And so for me, I'm just like, okay, look, and it's sad because I tell you something, I would love for the Niners to sign Fournette. Okay, he's a production guy, but we already know it's not going to happen because the Niners already have what they need. But my point being is that I look at what this guy has done out on the playing field, and I say to myself, okay, there had to be something extreme going on. I don't know what it was, and I believe it was in the locker room. I don't know if it was coaches, assistants, players, whatever. I don't know, but something had to be going on for them to let a guy who put up that type of numbers to just cut him.
Well, two things. Number one, the organization is known to be one of the poorest run in the NFL. That's why everybody wants out of there. Jalen Ramsey went to the Rams and basically demanded them to trade him. So I got to believe it's organizational, number one. Number two, unfortunately, running backs don't garner the respect that they have in the past because the game's gone to 3, 4, and 5 wideouts. So all of a sudden,
if about that last week, we did.
Yeah, if you got cap issues, they're paying him $4 million, which is about normal for a running back now. He's a guy that's going to go. But 2 weeks before the season, you better have somebody to play. Number three, he'll end up with New England with Bill Belichick, and he'll get 1,500 yards out of him. And the guy not known to have great hands and has 79 catches. I don't know if that was last year or his total, but so a lot of things going on there. And of course, we love to talk Bay Area sports, but I thought it was interesting that he wanted out. Jordan Reed talked about how great the Niners organization was, and there was kind of an example of right there where if your team's not run well, it doesn't matter how many great players you have. If your coaching staff and your team's not run well, you're not going to win. So we can thank, I think, Jed, Kyle, and John Lynch, for putting this together, and they really have done an outstanding job. So It'll be interesting this year, though.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and shift gears to the NBA. And I think one of the reasons why is because, as you said, hey, man, playoffs. Okay? We got the Lakers just finished off Portland. And the thing that kind of bothered me about that is that everybody spoke very highly on Dame Lillard. And with good reason. We got to be realistic. Dame Lillard is an excellent player, puts up great numbers. But once again, it was a situation where, you look at the stock value of the Lakers versus the stock value of Portland, and the stock value of the Lakers was just too much for them. 4-1 winners, the Lakers are. They send Portland home packing. And once again, Dame has to figure out exactly what he's going to do, and whether or not if they need to get some more players over in Portland to make their stock rise. Because Dame is putting up the numbers, but it seems like this is a movie that we've seen before with them.
Well, I thought when they got a big man healthy, Nurkic, and picking up, just had his name, Carmelo Anthony, I think will really add to their ability for somebody else to make a shot. So Dame now can take it to the hoop, kick it out to Melo, and he can shoot the three. So him having a full season with them and get some continuity, I think their window is closing also, unless they surround him with some different players. So I think he gives it one more year, and after that, he's got to go get a ring somewhere. So. And then most improved player? Oh, Brandon Ingram got the most improved player of the year.
Really?
Yeah, which kind of surprised a lot of people, I think. And the Heat and Bucks, that's going to be a great series. That just started game 1.
I still cannot believe the Bucks.
I think the Heat got it.
They did. I can't believe the Bucks dropped game 1 like that. And we talked about this earlier, and that is the fact that because the Bucks squeaked out of their last series. Okay, seriously, they barely got out of that one, but they did. So now you have a Heat team, the resurgence. Butler put up 40 points. He had a career night.
Career high at playoffs. So
yeah. But my other observation that I'm seeing is Jamal Murray and Donovan Spider Mitchell. I mean, these guys played.
Oh, that's gonna be a great game.
Oh man, they played eloquent. Man, I was just like, wow, okay, these guys have really. Who saw Murray doing what he's doing? I didn't see that. You?
Well, I said before the season started, don't sleep on Denver or Utah in the West, because all you talk about is the Lakers and Clippers,
right.
And used to be the Warriors, but they didn't get the love this year. So, and sure enough, boy, these two teams are really having a battle. So, yeah. I mean, Murray, 2 50-point nights in that series? That's out of his mind. And those are two smaller market teams where those kind of guys don't get the love they should throughout the league.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they just don't have the media there. So, anyway, I'm watching that game, and I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm like, I moved my glasses closer just so I can see him. You know what I'm saying? I was like, dang, this kid can play. All right. It's like, so we see what's going on there. Obviously, the Lakers advance.
And they'll get the winner of Utah and Denver.
Yeah. But, I mean, we talked about Giannis, and we talked about the fact that this is a player where if they do not –
he's another one.
Yeah,
they don't get some players around.
Yeah, if they do not capture the East this year, he's probably going to walk. He's probably going to want to go to a bigger market. And like we were talking about this earlier, and you said that, hey, Milwaukee's market is just not big enough. So it's like, okay, who wants to play there? Probably not a lot of people. So Giannis leaves. Now, he's even himself stated that he wanted to play with Steph, okay? And one of the biggest things everybody's been talking about over here is that, hey, you know what? We're going to get Giannis. Giannis is going to come to Golden State. Personally, myself, I was totally against that idea, and I was against it because it didn't make any sense, really.
Not with their style of play.
No. But I'm saying as much as Giannis probably wanted to play with Steph, it was like, well, wait a minute. Let's look at the reasonable outcome. The reasonable outcome, no. Giannis shouldn't come to Golden State. But you know what? Let's be realistic. Crazier things have happened. I mean, you get a situation where now all of a sudden Giannis wants to leave, and guess what? The style of play, from Kerr changes, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Draymond Green, and you're going, hey man, you're looking ripe as a trade piece right about now.
Well, you're gonna have to trade one of the big three to get Giannis here,
And you and I both agreed that it was Draymond that was going to go, okay, for a lot of reasons, okay? He's kind of a distraction, not to mention the fact that, Draymond's not the old Draymond that we knew before, okay?
But he is the glue to that team.
He's the glue to a point. And I say to a point is that when he can't keep his head in the game, that's when he's not the glue anymore.
Right. Okay? He becomes a distraction.
Right. And we've seen this from him many times already. When it's time, when we need him to stick like that group, we can't get him to do it. All of a sudden, he wants to mouth off at the rest, start picking up tees, and getting in confrontations, with players and whatnot. And this is, and each time, it's at a very crucial situation. We're in the playoffs, they're in the game 4, and they need that win. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, he's off the rails. And go ahead.
Yeah, I would not have given him that $100 million contract. So
no,
his play is going to deteriorate more so than any player on that team in the next 3 to 5 years. So, and it makes it tougher to trade him with that contract. So, and like we talked about, if somebody's going to go, it's going to be him. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I was looking at all the teams in the West. I'm looking at the Warriors, and they've got the number 2 overall pick, that they can kind of combine. But I just don't know if Giannis fits into this team when you'd be running pick and rolls all day when you got two of the best shooters in the NBA. So, and we don't know if Steve Kerr can coach. I'm sorry.
Well,
I could have coached that.
Okay, I'm not even going to go there with not Steve Kerr can coach. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not going to touch that with it. And the reason why is because this season hasn't started yet. So I ain't going to go down that road till it starts. But I will say this much. I've said this once. I'll say it again. One of the problems I have with Golden State right now is that Golden State and a lot of these aficionados are focusing on the number 2 pick. Like that is the cure-all. When in fact, that is so far from the truth. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to Golden State, their biggest issue is they have to do something to build up that bench and to develop the players that they have. See, those are 2 issues that they have not answered yet.
No.
We have not heard anything from Alan Smiley-Geach. We haven't heard anything. The guy hasn't, he went out and played like 1 or 2 games, and that was it. You have Lewis, who can't be consistent, okay? The only player they have that I saw a bright spot with was Pascal. That's it, okay? Other than that, you look at some of the other players they got, it's like, okay, where's the consistency? You don't see it.
No, they don't have the bench they had during their championship years.
No, of course not. Come on, you had David West, you had Sean Livingston, you had Andre Iguodala, they even had Mo Spates. You had seasoned guys on that bench,
right?
They were putting up great production. So when the first team got tired, or for whatever reason needed a break, what was the replacement? The replacement was just as lethal as what left the floor. So I'm just like, okay, you guys have not been able to replace that. So what makes me think that you're going to be able to compete? Because I'm telling you right now, the teams you're going to play against, they're playing right now, okay? And guess what? They're seasoned. They're tough, and they're playing a very volatile situation, which means what? When that next season starts, I got a feeling those teams are going to be more ready for this than Golden State will.
Well, and part of the problem is when you give Steph, Clay, and Draymond all max contracts. You know, Steph got 40 a year, Clay's getting 30-something, Draymond 20-something. There's no room to bring in other players without getting over the salary cap or the luxury tax. So they were able to afford Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, Mo Spates before because those 3 superstar quote players weren't making the max contracts yet. So this is going to be the biggest challenge for Bob Myers. You're going to either have to get a bunch of young players or a bunch of veteran players who are willing to play for the minimum to get a ring or get a chance at a ring. So this is going to be issues from here on out for them. And this is why I've said that 5-year run they had, you're probably not going to see it again. It's kind of like that Niners in the 80s. You're not going to see it again.
Right.
It's kind of Camelot with the Niners. It was unbelievable with the Warriors. Yeah, we still got 3 guys left over from it, but it's just not going to – everything's not going to fall together like it did for him before. So I think it's going to be a struggle for him the rest of the way, especially as tough as it is in the West.
Well, there's also the fact that the other teams in the West are getting better.
Okay? Yes.
Utah is no longer a slouch. Denver is no longer a slouch. We talked about how Portland probably needs to get some pieces, and they probably will in the offseason.
Right, yeah, but LA, like Clippers, the Lakers.
Yeah, you got the Clippers, you got Kawhi's, and like you said, he's a Clipper now.
And Phoenix, don't count them out.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Phoenix. The thing about Phoenix was surprising. They went 8-0 in the bubble, and they didn't make the playoffs.
I was going to say they won, yeah, but they were so far behind. Yeah, that's not fair to do that in the bubble. But there's another team on the rise with Devin Booker. So it's just going to get tougher from here on out for Golden State. So, and plus, when you have as long as they've had off, you got to get out of rhythm. When you're a 3-point shooting team, yeah, you can say I'll get my shot back, but they haven't played since what? December. So that could go almost a year without actually playing, if they start back in October next year. So
wow. Okay, so I want to talk Giants and A's, and the reason being is because today was
trade deadline.
Trade deadline, right. And you had talked about earlier, A's make a move, Giants do nothing. Okay.
Well, they picked that one. The A's got a pitcher, and I think his name was Minor.
Yeah.
But A's are, they're playing first place ball, so I don't think they needed to alter that much. If anything, they needed somebody in their rotation, which is what they got.
Right.
Giants, they could have unloaded, the Brandon's contracts, Cueto, Samardzija. Let's just go ahead and move forward and plan for the future. The past is over. There's another team who had a great run, 3
Right.
titles in 5 years too. But you got remnants of that team left, and Posey and the 2 Brandons and Pablo, and none of them are doing anything right now. And you're not going to trade your contracts away, so you're kind of stuck with them. And if you couldn't trade them, you either cut them and eat it, their contracts, or find a way to get them to start get a little more effective at the plate. So nobody knows what's going on over there with the Giants. I'm sorry.
Well, I tell you something. You can't make really any type of idea as far as what they're doing. You're right. I agree 100%. I mean, we don't know. No one knows. I mean, you look at the fact that, okay, and you said, let's just go ahead and move on to the future. This week, what was it? Hunter Pence got designated for assignment. They were still limping with Pablo Sandoval. And like you said, it's a shell of the championship that was once there. Really, it's not the real deal anymore. And I think you're right. I think if I was Farhan Zaidi, I would have probably went ahead and moved some people, even if it meant taking a gut shot, based on the contracts release and everything. Because really, at the end of the day, you're right. Those guys are making way too much money. They're dead.
And they're holding back the young players that want to come up and play.
Exactly. You got Samardzija should go. The Brandon should go. I mean,
I say it, Posey probably should go or move to first base.
Well, Posey, if he comes back, he probably is going to move to first base. I mean, I'm thinking outside the box based on what I think Farhan is doing. Okay, in other words, they already have Joey Bart up. So I'm guessing with Joey Bart being up, they're thinking, okay, look, by the time Posey comes back, Bart should be ready to take the helm. We move Posey to first base. Okay, which that's probably not a bad idea. But I tell you something. If I'm Buster Posey, what am I coming back for?
Well, that's a point with all those players we just talked about. Both Brandon, Pablo, Hunter, they all have all the money they need.
Yeah.
Buster just adopted 2 twins, and they were born prematurely, so that's why he decided to opt out and go take care of his family. Right. So I agree a little bit. I mean, his knees are shot, I'm sure. His percentages at the plate are going way down. So and part of it is like you said, why come back? Well, you're going to play professional sports as long as they'll keep paying you. That's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, to your point, you're saying, hey, for the money. Okay. And guess what? You know what? Not a bad answer.
And all of them have 3 rings or 2 or 3 rings. So they've gotten everything they wanted out of the game. Chips, money, and they're set for life, So once you it's time for somebody else to move up. And baseball is that one sport where you can play 20 years. There's no other sport that you can do that. So golf, but no other team sport that allows you to play that long. So what happens is either your farm system gets, aged out because you don't bring them up, whereas the A's are the complete opposite. They're constantly moving people. Now they've got some pretty good core, and they'd like to keep that and make a run at it. So it's interesting. 2 completely different approaches on each side of the bay. And we still aren't sure what the Giants' MO is right now.
I don't think anybody does. We got a few minutes here. I just want to acknowledge we had, fortunately, some people that basically passed away. Cliff Robinson, the cliffhanger, he passed away at 53. Lute Olson last week passed away. Arizona, Steve Kerr's alma mater. And,
he coached Tolbert and Kerr.
Yeah. And that was just sad. I understand they had a lot of people that responded after, because he touched a lot of people's lives over the years. Go ahead.
He put Arizona basketball on the map.
Oh, yeah. When he got there, they were like 1-17, right? They were awful. So, yeah, no question. He rewrote Arizona basketball. Also, the great John Thompson from Georgetown also passed away.
First African-American head coach to win the NCAA title.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else.
And they kind of put college basketball back on the map.
Back on the map, exactly. Because I'll tell you something. Before he was coaching, I wasn't watching college basketball.
No, it was kind of Kentucky and Louisville, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wasn't watching NCAA basketball.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he comes in. Then you had the rivalry between him and Raleigh Conaseca, who was the head coach at St. John's.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you start seeing, guys like Jim Boeheim. You start seeing, of course, the great Dean Smith of North Carolina. I mean, come on, that guy was amazing. He was an amazing coach. I mean, that's why when you go there, you see Dean Smith Arena. All right, it's like, okay, I think they're pretty.
Well, the coaches were bigger than the players.
Yeah.
Back then at the college level.
Right.
And still to this day, and then because they're not paid, so that's going to be interesting. But there's three pretty towers of their sport, that all passed away, and they say it happens in threes, and there's your three. So.
Yeah, it's just the Cliff Robinson thing. I just was not ready. But apparently, with Cliff Robinson, they said that he had a stroke 2 months ago.
Okay.
And
I wasn't sure because I didn't read anything.
I was kind of surprised about that because
53. Athletes, man, they just once they get out of the game, a lot of times they let themselves go, and then all of a sudden you have heart issues because your heart's a muscle, and when you build it up and get in that great of shape, and then you stop. Your heart still stays large as a muscle, and not enough blood gets up in there. And so a lot of guys have gone through it. So, I hated to see him go. He was one of the first big men that could shoot the three.
Hey, honestly, I said –
Rip City, baby.
I always thought that, the Rick Adelman never used him that way.
Right.
But he could have been the first KD hybrid.
Yeah, you're right.
He could have been because he had the length. He was tall. He could shoot the three, and he was great on the post. I mean, that guy was amazing. I'm like, and they could have used, but they never used him that way. They could have. Yeah. They never did. So, but
rest in peace, all of them.
Yeah, rest in peace, and condolences to their families. We're gonna have to shut it down here. My name is Richard the Razor Ewing. This is Mike the Shoe Shumann. This is Gameface. We do this on Monday evenings on the Bleed Talent Network. You're welcome to join us next Monday evening. Once again, come on in, take a seat. We'd love to have you, but you better put your game face on.